I'm going to go to the next video because there's two others, and brace yourself, it does get worse. That's not me typing.
We may not need to add very much more because we settled most things.
Khilafah, everything will be great. You just reestablish the Khilafah, you implement Shariah, whatever that means. They never really specify because they can't. They say that if we have those things, we have Khilafah, we have Shariah, everything's going to be wonderful. We can dictate our terms to the world. We'll be free, we'll be independent. Everything will be just and righteous and so on and so on and so on. Okay. Well, here's the thing. We had that. We had the Khilafah, and it did not prevent colonialism from taking over our lands. It didn't prevent our economic subjugation. It didn't prevent our internal divisions. That didn't help us. So clearly there are a lot of other problems, a lot of other challenges to establishing government, to establishing a state, to running a state, and to organizing the affairs of the society, other than calling your government Khilafah and other than implementing Sharia. Now, I know that there's, plenty of brothers and sisters out there who will claim that it is blasphemous to say that it is not enough to organize the society successfully, but this is the truth. There are many, 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 many other things that you need in order to successfully run the society, in order to successfully run a state. That's simply not enough. It wasn't enough in the past, and this is the thing that the Islamists don't want to talk about. They don't want to tell you that. They want you to think that when we had the Khilafah, when we had the Sharia, everything was wonderful. And what they failed to mention is that it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough then, and it isn't enough now, and it won't be enough in the future. I mean, it's always going to come down to a human understanding and implementation. Like I've talked about before, in the Ottoman Empire, you had the Sharia and you had Qanun, because the Sharia does not cover every issue. So they understood correctly that you do have to come up with some other types of legislation in order to run a state. It's tremendously dangerous to make the claim or to make a promise that the problem of corruption in government, the problem of injustice, or the problem of oppression in government is that it is not the right form of government. And if we just have a different form of government and we have a government that we call Khilafah, then therefore all of the problems will be solved. No, the problem of corruption is always going to be there. The problem of injustice is always going to be there. The problem of oppression is always going to be there. It always was there for the last 1,400 years under what was called Islamic government, under what was called Khilafah, under the Ottoman Empire, and before and before and before. So, I mean, like the entirety of our history, except for 30 years, we have dealt with oppression, we have dealt with injustice, we have dealt with corruption under what was, according to everyone's, consensus, Islamic government. We have to come to terms with the fact that government can be, according to the legal definition, Islamic, and also oppressive. It can be the legal definition of Islamic, and it can also be unjust. It can also be corrupt, because that is what we have had. The correct position for anyone who wants to see the society and the government become more Islamic, become more aligned with Islamic law, Islamic values, and the objectives of the Sharia, then the role of those people is to just be in a continuous struggle to make whatever the government is better. Islamic is being used as a synonym for perfect. It's like, well, maybe in the Ottoman Empire, they weren't doing it completely or correctly or rightly. In other words, maybe it just wasn't perfect. Well, no, it wasn't perfect. It was Islamic, but it wasn't perfect, because those two things don't mean the same thing. Yes, maybe they did implement things incompletely. Maybe they did implement things imperfectly. Of course they did. Anyone will. Anyone who was claiming that they can implement it perfectly is a liar. And this is sort of the fundamental, at least implicit claim of the Islamists. Overthrow the current regime, whatever current regime it is, overthrow that regime and then put us in power. And then we will establish an Islamic government, which by definition must mean that it's a perfect, just, and righteous government. Well, that's a lie. Who believes that? They're a fool, and they're being manipulated. And they are going down an extremely dangerous path. I'm speaking as someone who, ever since I became a Muslim, was for a very long time one of the people who believed in the idea of, that it was like wajib for us to reestablish the Khilafah without ever actually bothering to look into what that even means. And whether or not in actual legal definition, whether or not the governments that we have are or are not Islamic. Because of course the Islamists will say any government that we ourselves in our party is not running is by definition un-Islamic. Any government that is imperfect, any government that has oppression, any government that has injustice, any government that has corruption is by definition un-Islamic. No, that's not true by the legal definition. If
No,
that is true,
I think it's,
then you would have
Rush.
to see any form.
I think if the idea is clear, it's the same what we are answered there. He is the same blunder of Hizb ut-Tahrir and his blunder. But the only thing, major problem with him, the Shahid, is that he said Islam does not cover everything, or Sharia does not cover everything. It's not true. That's it. We addressed that at the beginning. He does misunderstand Sharia. Most likely understand only as hudud and things like that. Does not as the comprehensive system of values and so on. That's number one. Secondly, he's still stuck with the fabricated hadith, and we're completely ignoring Quran and the other hadith mutawatir, which has been deliberately or essentially scattered in the books here and there so that nobody can see them and need digging, which we have done some of it. I don't claim we dug everything. So that's the problem come from there. The problem is major for Hizb ut-Tahrir, because Hizb ut-Tahrir insists that until 1924 it was somehow Islamic. I argue it was not. My argument is now it has developed slowly through time. It was very bitter and very difficult that since Muawiyah usurped power, we have nearly a system. They may be munafiq rulers, so they're publicly Muslim and they're internally kafir, and the general system, that general qada, general personal affairs, the affairs of the people. And through history, the Khilafah was more or less like concerned about international affairs, war and peace, a bit about maybe taxes and zakah. That's it. They were not involved in people's life very much. The state was not penetrating in the society. The society could live separately and manage its own affairs. They have their own schools, they have their own endowments, they have their own masjids, they have their own scholarly developments, and the state was barely interacting with that. So there was like a schism, essentially a schism. Nevertheless, the oppression and the corruption and so on of the state did stain the society and poison it, and in part, no doubt about that. But because it was not interacting, it's not like the modern central state. The modern central is a monster. It goes very deep. Look, for example, the laws about LGBT here in the West and the counter laws in Russia. This should not have been, neither this nor that should not have been even addressed. There's no need to address that. No need to have a law. Look at all the regulation about how to enter the airport, how to get out, and all of these things are all this is both in the European state, which emerged from absolute rule, and these are emerged from feudalism and from people believing they are sovereign on earth and they have divine power on earth, the divine rights of king, and developed now in the secular state and giving these divine rights back to the people, quote and unquote, all of these things. And obviously this is impossible. So actually the divine right of the people of power, the people of money, of Wall Street, etc., and the city of London of its financial power and its corruption. So that's historically, yeah. There in Islamic history, at least the state was not that deeply penetrating. In general. And they would not bother what happened in the society unless someone rebels or make excessive demand on the ruler, which the ruler is not interested to fulfill. So maybe that's the reason it went, you could say, general life for Moses' life. But later, for example, Sheikh Khilafah Othmani, in about 1500 plus around that, the printing press was invented. Actually, the printing press is essentially the printing full page by Gutenberg. It was actually previously invented in Samarkand. Is Gutenberg adopting that from Samarkand or inventing independence? That's irrelevant. Maybe he did it inventively, and there's no problem with that. Who said that a German or a black man or a white man or a blue-eyed man will not be able to invent? Everyone can invent, no problem. So we don't go with who is the first invention. This preservation was prohibited. Question: is this prohibition supported by Islam. I would say this prohibition is prohibiting a mubah and actually a desirable mubah, which will give people the facility to read the books, to spread knowledge. Will be in synchronization with Allah's command. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. Read, study. قل رب زدني علما. They with that undermine the people getting knowledge and spreading widely. So I would say that prohibition, which later on was strengthened to even death penalty, is a Kufr law. For example, let me shock Shahid and Sheikh Hizb al-Tahrir, for example. So I don't know. His argument is all based on two faulty premises. That his definition of Islamic government is wrong. It's not Islam. All these are not Islamic governments. Since Muawiyah, we have to give up on that. We have to face the bitter reality. That's it. Secondly, Sharia doesn't cover everything. Surely it has covered, as we discussed previously. It covered it. Then the whole discussion become mute. But Hizb al-Tahrir is in a corner, without any doubt. He has cornered Hizb al-Tahrir, but also he has exposed that the background he came from is but who has admitted, actually, interestingly, I think in the first video, he admitted that when he based Islam, he thought about rebellion and things like that. This a natural way, some coming Islam fresh. Then he was contaminated, obviously, by Salafi and Madkhali and classical scholars who contaminated his mind with the BS of, sorry to use such a language, the BS of al-Mawardi and so on, and al-Halwa al-Aqd. And these partly fabricated hadith or fully fabricated hadith. That's what has happened. His initial position was correct, but there was nobody putting the argument on the table the correct way. And then part of the correct way is to show what to do if you are ruled by Kufr and by oppressive regime. Is the rebellion the only way? Are there other avenues? What to do and so on? That needs to be sorted out in something like Muhasabatul Hukam. We have sorted out. It's not always rebellion, something else. So that's the problem. It's a twisted problem because it has been either accidentally or deliberately twisted through Islamic history. Accidentally by simple-minded, gullible scholars for history, after Muawiyah and so on, and cronies of the government, or deliberately by treasonous scholars. I should remind myself and remind you and remind Brother Shahid, or the saying of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن كثيرا من الأحبار والرهبان ليأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل الله. Plenty of the scholars and the monks, they consume people wealth unjustifiably and misguide from the way of Allah. Obviously, this in Surah At-Tawbah, Allah is addressing directly. The first target is the Ahbar and Rahban of the Jews and Christian. But who said this Ummah does not have Ahbar and Rahban? And plenty of them has also consumed the wealth of the people unjustifyingly and also misguide from the way of Allah. And also we have the hadith narrated by both Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As or Uqba ibn Amr al-Juhani from the Messenger of Allah, almost the same wording. I think exactly the same wording. أكثر منافق أمتي قراء. The most munafiq of my ummah are not the common people, not the street sweeper, not the butcher in the corner, no. قراءها, the reader, the scholars. And that's the correct name, by the way. The word used ulama is wrong. Ulama is knowledgeable, is only praised in the Quran. The correct translation of ulama, the people of knowledge, the knowledgeable. That's different than the people of scholarship, the reader, the ahbar, the people of ink. Ahbar come from Hebrew, and Hebrew is the ink, the people of ink, the people who write, the people that. These are not necessarily praiseworthy because they may have data and information, but they don't have knowledge because they don't have a deep insight in the reality of the universe and the respect and fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنما يخشى الله من عباده العلماء. So don't trust these so-called ulama. In popular jargon, ulama actually they are only qurra, they're only reader or scholars. They are not knowledgeable people. So this is also a faulty translation you find used in some Quran translation that the word ulama is translated as scholar. No, ulama is the knowledgeable people. They're actually, if the Quran mentions the people of scholarship, either use ahbar or use ahl al-dhikr, the people of remembrance or of study, the people of study, ahl al-dhikr. When he argued with the Quraish about when they said, we don't accept a human messenger, he said, ask the people of previous books and previous revelation, whoever claimed to be prophet in time past, were they angels? They will tell you. All in history says that a human being out of flesh and blood who claimed to be messenger. We never sent any angel down as a messenger. That was an issue. They could ask the people of scholarship, the people who have books and can refer to history. That's it. So either Ahl al-Dhikr, people of dhikr, of remembrance, of study, people of study, scholars, or Qurra. The Quran doesn't use the word Qurra, but use the command Iqra. And then when the Messenger is ordered, قُلْ رَبِّ زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, increase me in knowledge, not in reading, not in... That's not relevant. What's relevant? Knowledge, real knowledge, which make you recognize your place in the universe and your relation to Allah, and then you become enlightened. You fear Allah, you respect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you will not make such blunders.
Just to
That's just so actually it is the same. It is going the same grinding, the same false premises. Islamic regime could be oppressive and so on. By the way, if a regime enact laws which by them oppressive, this is an act of Kufr. This is Kufr Bawah. What does it mean Kufr Bawah? For example, if like I said, that the prohibition of the printing press and even on the death penalty, I would say this is Kufr Bawah.
Well, you're putting a had on something that Allah and His Messenger didn't put a had on. So, you know, it would be different if it was less than 10 lashes, but to put a had on something like that, that's, you know,
even the prohibition itself. The prohibition itself, even without any punishment. And in addition, making a death penalty for something was not punishable by death, but according to fundamental principle of Islam, is not haqq. You cannot shed blood without haqq.
Will the same also be applicable for people who are
So this is a kufr law.
The people who have possession of drugs and then they have death penalties in places, I don't know, maybe Indonesia or places.
We can argue, because some people say maybe this is like a public rebellion and so on. That is maybe a fine point to discuss. But in principle, if it is not argued that it is muharaba, it is either rebellion by the sword, actual rebellion, or de jure rebellion, rejecting the law publicly and openly, like someone marrying a dog or marrying a man publicly and bragging. This is rebellion. Even if not by the sword, it is rebellion against the public order publicly. That will be an act of kufr, will be act of muharaba, for example. But this is fine points. We are not going there. But prohibiting the printing press is definitely not having no Sharia guide. Whatever.
I'm going to continue with this recording now in a second. So the other one is so his owners. Firstly, Islamic oppressive. Just to put things in clear perspective, by being oppressive, you negate your claim towards Islam. You're effectively, according to the narrations.
Exactly. According to the hadith I mentioned, was narrated from Thawban and from Hani and from Nu'man ibn Bashir and from Anas ibn Ali, from these four Sahabi.
Okay. The other
the Imam are from Quraish. They are legitimate Imams as long as if they rule with justice. If they promise, they fulfill the promise. And if they are asked for mercy, they sturhimu rahimu. Whoever does not do that, Allah's cares and the cares of the angel, the cares of all people on them. But that's not all. There's an instruction to us. Then put your sword on your shoulder, exterminate them. But if you don't do that, you will become miserable serfs, like exactly what happened in history. We became miserable serfs, slaves.
He's also put the premise, for example, improving the existing system. So, I mean, for example,
we don't want to go this fine point. I think this is a waste of time.
These kind of things to say that they're legitimate and that's your job. And
what he advises with Tahrir, that's another discussion. We have these fundamental, then based on that, then the discussion and discourse will be what should have Hizb Tahrir and what should we as Tajdeed and other Islamic movements do.
Okay, I'm going to finish this recording as well.
Let me just summarize because I think it will be a waste of time to discuss his suggestion in details because it's based on a false promises. He says accept these regimes, they are somehow Islamic, and just try to improve. I say no, reject these regimes, say they're not Islamic, and tell the people that's the way of change according to Quran and Sunnah, which is not necessarily rebellion, but this has to be studied. That's in Muhasabatul Hakam that it. Where is the constitutional code? Where is the justification? Ask a regime, give us the justification for the giving permission to use the rebanking, and tell us if this is not riba or it is riba. If it's riba, why is permitted? What is the duress? What is the necessity? Give us. You are accounted to us. Well, ultimately we have the right. You claim you have Bayah. All of them claim they have Bayah or elect as a Muslim, but the Muslim have to be educated that if you have the majority and you have sufficient power as an ummah, not as an army, you have the right to ask and enforce, because We are not obliged to establish a state. Establishing a state or establishing power is in the hand of Allah. This is the system of the universe. But we obliged, if we are established on earth, الذين إن مكناهم في الأرض أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف ونهوا عن المنكر. Allah said, if we establish them on earth, raising the believer, we establish them. Allah is the one established it. Then they establish prayer, establish a system of prayer, and they collect zakat, and command good and forbid evil, meaning having political parties and doing improvement of government continuously. Because Allah knows that human are failure. They have to be corrected continuously. And Surah Al-Asr, إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. All humans are at loss except who embrace faith and عملوا الصالحات, do good deeds, but that's not enough. وتواصوا بالحق, admonish each other with the truth, admonish each other with perseverance and sabr. No, there's a process inside the interacting. You have be dynamically, continuously correcting the others as persons, as organizations, as companies, as local administration, as local states, and as federal entity. You have to continuously admonishing them and instructing them, and they have to admonish you and instruct you, and back and forth continuously. Otherwise, corruption will spread because humans are corruptible.
Professor, this is a good point actually, because most of them, traditional scholars, they understand patience that you need to be patient towards the hukam. But no, but the fact that patience means that you need to struggle, to
endure,
advise them, and to endure, to ask them to change, and
when Allah said tawasaw bis-sabr, they admonish each other to be patient. What is patience? The scholars themselves, when they come to the books of spirituality and akhlaq and Riyadh al-Salihin, they call the patience. There are three types. الصبر على فتنة المال. That you have to endure the temptation of money and wealth. That needs patience. الصبر في الشدائد, you have to endure the hardship. And then sabr, you have to endure carrying the burden of prayer and zakat. Prayer is a burden, definitely. Some people who are really so devoted, it will become a pleasure, like a messenger of Allah. But most humans, it's very difficult to get at Fajr time up. You have to do it. The most difficult, we are stingy. We have difficulty giving the zakat out. We have to force ourselves. So all these kind of patience, that was, and I see you, again, don't do that. Force yourself to pray at Fajr. Get up at Fajr. I sleep late. Try. I'm working as a guard. Okay, then extend your time until you pray Fajr, then sleep until noon. Manage it. Rearrange your time. Try to get your life. That's meaning I admonish you with sabr and organize your life. And you admonish me on the other one. But not only person to person, but person to groups, person to government, etc.
So patience is not being submissive and
no, that's not
going to corner and not facing the.
That's contradicts the hadith we said from four of the Sahaba, which is clearly says, if you don't do that, fight these rulers, which are extreme, which worthy of fighting. Obviously, that's only a case if they are fought. Then you will be miserable serf.
Okay.
Just eat.
Yes, I'm conscious of the time.
Surviving on food. That's it.
Okay.
You have lost human dignity and you have standing.
I'm going to continue with this because the next video you may find very contentious, but inshallah, let me just finish this bit. If there's anything further to add,
whether or not in actual legal definition, whether or not the governments that we have are or are not Islamic, because of course the Islamists will say any government that we ourselves in our party is not running is by definition un-Islamic. Any government that is imperfect, any government that has oppression, any government that has injustice, any government that has corruption is by definition un-Islamic. No, that's not true by the legal definition. If that was true, then you would have to concede that we have not had any form of Islamic government since the abdication of Hassan bin Ali, because we have always had, with rare periods of exception, we have always had corruption, we have always had injustice, we have always had oppression. I mean, the number of just, fair,
good that he admits that anyway.
We have had as an ummah for the 100 years.
Rush, we addressed that. I think we can skip the rest. It's almost like reinforcing. Yeah. Just go.
I just want to switch because there are some other bits. I'll create a speed just so that we can get through it. In case there's anything missed.
I mean, how can you explain, for example, all of the almost down the list of the most eminent scholars in Islamic history were in prison? That was under Islamic government. Any government, in order for it to be righteous or to be more righteous, to be less unjust, to be less oppressive, that's going to take a continuous struggle and a continuous effort on the part of the people, as has always been the case in Islamic history. Your real role is not to try to seize power. Your real role is not to try to take down a government. Your real role is what it has always been, which is to speak truth to power and to try, through practical ways, within your sphere of influence, to make things better, to make things more fair, to make things more just, to make things less corrupt. Because that's what we all really mean when you talk about Islamic government. It means what we all generally actually mean is we want governments that are better, we want governments that are fairer, we want governments that treat their people more decently. And another key point that most people mean when they talk about Islamic government, we want independence. We want to actually have sovereignty. We want to actually be able to make the decisions for our own society. So if you want to be useful, then you have to pinpoint the exact things that are, as you see them, contradictory to Islam, prove that they are contradictory to Islam, either to the Shariah itself or that they contradict fundamental Islamic values. Find those the things that are undermining those principles and those values, and work to change those things. And whatever your government is, whatever form your government takes, there's no statement from Rasulullah that says that you have to establish the Khilafah. Even when he used the word Khilafah, it was not in reference to a political system that was articulated and organized and defined. When Rasulullah referred to Khilafah, he was referring to the linguistic meaning of the word, meaning this whatever system of authority, whatever system of government, whatever system of rule came after him. Only later did we start to call, transform the word Khilafah from its linguistic meaning into a political term, because there is no political system in Islam. There are specific rules, and any system that either does implement those rules or genuinely, sincerely aspires to or articulates its commitment to implement those rules is an Islamic system. So you have to be adaptable and you have to be realistic and do what the righteous believers have always done throughout all of Islamic history, which is to just struggle to try to make things better.
Okay, so in here, just to surmise, it's basically improve the existing system. Again,
that's another issue. I don't think it's based on that. They said every Islam, he's based that from the abdication of Al-Hassan until now, he's right. Is not say all he claimed they are Islamic. I say they are not Islamic. That's it. What the duty would have been is someone may argue and study history. The people of Harrad regarded their duty to fight against Yazid. Because of many things, including what happened with Hussein, etc., and many other things. The people of Jamajim, they regarded their duty is to fight against Abdul Malik ibn Marwan and his Hajjaj, and his claim that these Islamic governments is actually faulty. So the whole thing needs to be studied from the ground up in a different way. That history went the wrong way and went into diversion. This is true. And the diversion, because these munafiq kafir jumped on the power and they were able to mislead the ummah by all kinds of nifaq and playing tricks and games. But generally, the general ummah and the general judiciary, etc., was okay. But is it strictly formally the proper Islamic ruling which was established by the Messenger of Allah and the Khulafah Rashidin? Definitely it's not. Did some Kufr Buwah there? I would say there have been Kufr Buwah. If we analyze history correctly, we will find clear Kufr Buwah committed by some of the rulers.
Play the last one. This is a slightly longer one. We can skip through as need be, but there's a general thread in this next one, which is about kind of exonerating a lot of this. So it gets pretty bad. To be honest with you, I mean, some of the stuff of giving husna zan to some of these scumbag rulers. Anyway,
I'll press things to say about Mohammed bin Salman and the UAE governments many Muslims regard as illegitimate. What do you say about the fact that some people have called you an agent or an apologist for the Arab regimes?
It'd be a little bit difficult for me to be an agent, considering the fact that I'm banned for life from the GCC. I wonder if that's true for any of the people who are criticizing my stance, or people who are accusing me. I can't go to Dubai. I can't go to the Khalij. I can't go to the Gulf. I have a lifetime ban ever since my case, and I haven't done anything since I got out of prison to make the Gulf rulers like me anymore. In fact, I'm sure that sometimes they wish they would have executed me when they had the chance. I wouldn't be surprised if the U.S. wishes that they had done that as well. This is one of the most amusing accusations that I've ever gotten, actually, and I've gotten all the accusations. Whenever someone labels you something, online especially, what they're really doing is just announcing that they are the opposite of what they called you. You know, they're announcing that they belong to the opposite camp. They're telling you what vantage point they're seeing you from, or the filter through which they're seeing you. So sometimes I've been called a Marxist, a leftist, and then sometimes I'm called a capitalist. Sometimes I'm called a Khariji, and sometimes I'm called a Madkhali. Sometimes I'm called a Wahhabi, sometimes I'm called an Ikhwani. None of this has anything to do most of the time with what I am or what I'm saying or what my ideas are. It just has more to do really with the ideological box that the person themselves is in, and their need to make sure that everyone else is also in some kind of easily identifiable box, the same way that they are. I mean, there's some people who think I'm not even a real person. They think I'm some sort of AI, which would be a stunning revelation for my wife and children. This is nothing new, by the way. This is something I've been dealing with for years, which I suppose is the same for anyone who's ever opened their mouth in public. But as far as the Arab regimes go, especially in the Gulf states, I doubt that any of the people who are criticizing me for my stance towards the UAE, for example, I doubt that they have more reason than I do to be anti-UAE. For most of these critics, the wrongdoing and injustice of the Arab regimes is an abstraction, not for me. I was tortured in the UAE. I was beaten with clubs and truncheons. I was electrocuted. I was stripped and waterboarded in the UAE. Friends of mine were executed by firing squad in the United Arab Emirates, and they were innocent men. I went through 7 years of a farcical court process in which I could not testify. I could not defend myself. I couldn't meet with an attorney. It was a complete sham. My original appeals court trial, if you can believe it, lasted for exactly 2 sessions. One in which I pled innocent, and the other in which I was found guilty and sentenced to death without any testimony of any kind. The UAE published in their state-controlled media some of the most horrific, slanderous lies and sensationalistic stories about me. And this is something that the UAE authorities told me they were going to do when they were interrogating me. Ever since I got out of prison, I worked with Detained in Dubai and Due Process International, which are the 2 leading organizations in the world that have supported thousands of people who have been wrongfully detained and falsely accused in the UAE. I know the details of literally thousands of cases of wrongdoing by the UAE government, by the Saudi government, by the Qatari government, and throughout the Gulf. If anyone has a reason to bear a grudge against these regimes, it's me. But as a Muslim, I have to put my personal feelings aside, and I have to try to be fair. I have to try to be objective. A Muslim has to tell the truth, even if it's bitter. And we have to be honest, even about people whom we may despise. And we have to try to understand situations beyond our own personal experience. We have to understand how our own personal experience may make us biased. No matter how much you might dislike someone, you never have the right to lie about them. Look, there's a very prevalent and very counterproductive sentiment amongst our people. And it is directly opposed to what the religion teaches us. And that is this idea that somehow hating the rulers is a sign of piety, a sign of righteousness. If you don't hate the rulers, you can't be a good person. You can't be a good Muslim, and you can't love Islam. Like it's a pillar of faith to delegitimize and hate the rulers. This is incredibly ignorant and unfair. And like I said, it's counterproductive and it's self-destructive. What kind of a default position is that? And who do you think benefits from that being the default position? Whose interests are served by having the Muslims all hate their rulers? It certainly isn't the interest of the Muslims. The Imam, the leader, the ruler, is guiding the affairs of his community, whether you like it or not. He's guiding the affairs of his community, his state, his people. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that he is a shield for the Muslims. So how are you going to hate him? Just because he isn't perfect? Just because he commits sins? Just because he does wrong sometimes? Don't you? Is your default position to hate every Muslim who's just like you and who follows Islam and adheres to the Sharia imperfectly, just like you follow Islam and adhere to the Sharia imperfectly? And they'll say that they hate the rulers because they don't rule by what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed. Well, they do it as much as you do it, as much as you do in your own life. You do it as much as they do, which is to the best of your ability. And you fail and they fail sometimes. You compromise sometimes and they compromise sometimes. You succumb to pressure sometimes and so do they. And you can't imagine the types of pressures that they're under. You can't imagine the stakes that they're grappling with. I mean, heavy is the head that wears the crown. That's a fact. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the best of your rulers are those whom you love and they love you. And the worst of your rulers are those whom you hate and they hate you. The order of the wording is important, in my opinion. Your love and your hate come first. They don't love or hate you first. Theirs is a reaction to however you are towards them. Now, that doesn't mean being uncritical, but be fair in your criticism. Be balanced. If the rulers do something that you think is wrong, just say this thing is wrong. Don't say the ruler is evil. The ruler is an apostate. The ruler is a puppet of the West. The ruler is a devil. That's just creating fertile ground for your enemies to sow hostility and chaos in your society and to keep your nation from ever moving forward or unifying behind its leadership. Because look, everything that happened to me in the UAE, whatever abuse, whatever wrongdoing that I suffered at the hands of the authorities in the United Arab Emirates, all of those things happen in the West. Police brutality is just as bad in the West as it is anywhere else in the world, if not worse. People are beaten in the West. People are tortured in the West. People are railroaded through sham trials. Innocent people go to jail. Innocent people get executed. But there's khair in the UAE. There's goodness in the UAE and in the Arab and the Muslim world that they don't have in the West. Thousands of people every year get pardoned from prison in the UAE and in the Arab world, throughout the Muslim world. Their debts get paid off. Yes, there are system failures, but many times the system works. I mean, I'm here today because the system ultimately worked in my case. I have no hard feelings towards the UAE, despite being intimately familiar with the flaws in their system. And from the lowliest prison guard to the warden, from the police to the prosecutors to the judges, I can tell you that every one of them cares about Islam as much as any other Muslim does. And just like any other Muslim, they fall short sometimes. And that's no reason to hate someone. That's no reason to hate them. That's no reason to hate their system. That's no reason to hate their governments. Both the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Qatar as well have governed their states remarkably well. The leaders of those countries are some of the brightest, most strategic and visionary leaders in the world today. And I'm saying that while they won't even let me put one foot inside of their countries. I'm saying it because it's true. I'll say it even if I have to say it begrudgingly. I can't lie about that. You know, everyone likes to say that these leaders in the Gulf, in the Arab countries, that they're puppets of the West, puppets of the United States. But again, because of the type of work that I do, I'm thoroughly familiar with the kind of influence that these countries have in the West. It's an outdated, obsolete way of thinking to say that they're anyone's puppets. They are tactfully and strategically navigating the power dynamics in their region, and they're doing it masterfully. And they're building, like I've said before, a sort of soft empire across the Middle East and Africa and beyond. And future generations of Muslims will inherit and benefit from all of that for at least a century or more. Now, yes, in some cases, they are building that soft empire ruthlessly. They're doing it violently in some cases. It includes subjugation. I think that the Gulf states, for example, have recognized that the International Monetary Fund is a tool for conquest, and they're actually working in conjunction with the IMF in places like Egypt and in Tunisia, so that instead of Western multinationals and investors conquering those countries, they can conquer those countries. Once the IMF reforms make those countries more vulnerable to conquest, they're going to be the ones to do it. Look, this is the real world. Like I've said many times, if you are a weaker nation, if you are a vulnerable economy, independence is not an option for you. If the West doesn't take over, someone else will. It will either be China or Russia, or else the West will just destabilize your country to the point of catastrophic chaos. And you'll never be able to advance. You'll never be able to develop in any way whatsoever. But the Gulf states are moving in, sometimes acting as brokers or as managers for the interests of the West, for the interests of China, for the interests of Russia. But in actuality, in my opinion, they're moving in to lay the groundwork for their own authority, to bring these countries under their own sphere of influence. And that, whether you realize it or not, holds major predatory powers at bay. It's a brilliant strategy. They're creating something like a buffer zone between the West and the Western-oriented owners and controllers of global financialized capital and the Muslim world. They're creating a buffer zone between the OCGFC and the global South to some extent, between the OCGFC and the Muslim world. And whether you're intelligent enough, and whether you're dispassionate enough, and whether you're objective enough to see it or not, they are even integrating Israel into their sphere of influence. That is the most historic and monumental strategic victory that you can imagine. Look, normalization is the beginning of the end of Zionism. There's no two ways about it. Israel was a project that only made strategic sense for the West in the context of the 20th century global order. And it doesn't make sense anymore. And Israel knows it. That's why hardline Zionists like Netanyahu are losing their minds today, because they know the party's over. The umbilical cord between Tel Aviv and Washington is going to get cut. And Israel is going to have to integrate properly into the region, into the Arab region, into the Muslim world, into the Middle East, if they want to survive in any way whatsoever. And they know it, and the Gulf leaders know it. And they know, the Jews know, that the only people in history who ever dealt with them fairly were the Muslims. Believe me, it won't be long before you stop hearing phrases like Judeo-Christian, and you start hearing about how the Jews enjoyed their golden age during the Islamic Empire. Look, you don't survive as a cohesive community for thousands of years without knowing which side your bread is buttered on. So no, I'm not an apologist, I'm a realist, and I want to see the Muslims achieve economic sovereignty, political independence, and psychological decolonization. And I see that these rulers, these governments, are making practical and strategic moves that benefit those objectives. And if they're not personally the most righteous and pious people, okay, well, neither am I. But what they're building might yet be inherited by leaders who are more pious and who are more righteous than they are. I mean, Nuruddin Zengi was better than his father, but it's because of what his father did. He inherited what his father had built, and that's what made him able to do what he did, and subsequently what Salahuddin Ayyubi was able to do. That's how power works. That's how empires work. They're a story told across history, and we inhabit just one very small moment in that story. So for me, I see any people who are excessively critical or who excessively denigrate the rulers in the Muslim world, I see those people as propagandists for our enemies. And most of the criticism that they offer reeks of propaganda. It's always riddled with distortions, with half-truths, with exaggerations, with hyperbole and emotion. And it sells the cheapest kind of self-righteousness, the kind that relies on defaming the character of others to try to make yourself seem better than them by implication. Like, oh, Mohammed bin Salman did such and such, and I'm just aghast at the impiety of it all, which is just a passive way of advertising your implied piety. It's what I would call taqwa signaling, you know, like virtue signaling. It's like when someone offers particularly pedantic nasiha just to show how righteous they are. It's self-serving and unhelpful. So whoever the ruler is, in my opinion, whoever your ruler is, wherever you are in the Muslim world, you should pray for him, and you should hope for the best from him, and don't help shaitan against him, and don't help the enemies of the Muslims against him. And in fact, this goes for everyone else, for all your brothers and sisters in Islam. Be balanced in your criticism. Be fair, and limit your criticism to their particular actions that are objectionable, and don't attack their character. You know, we all know and believe, and we've all seen that people can start good and turn bad. And we're always quick to gossip about those people and condemn them for that. But it's just as possible for people to start bad and turn good. That's just as possible. Now, when someone goes from good to bad, we tend to disregard whatever good they ever did before that. But when a bad person turns good, we won't let them forget how they used to be. And we forever suspect that their goodness is fake. This is wrong. Everyone is struggling between their own goodness and their own evil. And there's evil in a good person, and there's good in an evil person. None of us, or anyway, very few of us, are actually 100% one or the other. And that includes the rulers.
Sorry, before you say anything, I'm surprised my stomach could take all of that, because honestly, I can't think of anything more politically naive.
That's
ridiculous.
Just,
I mean, honestly, for example,
but not only political naive, it's ideological naive, because his starting point is that really is the fact that the falsification of classical scholars, al-hal wal-aqd, all of this rubbish, that human beings are failing. Yes, they are failing. There's an accounting system to the government. There's a strict ruling system. There's a strict rule. فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول. There must be a court system. For example, if these are really care about Islam, let's say this regime, why there's an independent, strong judiciary which can tell the ruler stop there. It used to be in time past. Even the Khilafah Uthmaniyya, there's something like that over there. And, a judge could judge against the Khalifa, and Khalifa have to submit. That's have even abolished. We don't have that. It's not formalized in their constitution. They don't have a constitutional court. They don't have all of these things, which it will be enshrining this ayah. They should be the first one to have that, not America and not Germany, with the constitutional court, etc. The problem is that the philosophical and the Sharia background in his mind is relatively weak and poor, and have this misunderstanding of this obedience and so on. And this trust to the, as I said, because these hadith which have been hidden, and the correct understanding of the Quran, لا تطعهم آثما أو كفورا, but let me stress again, لا تطع, don't obey does not mean you rebel. There's in between stages. One of this is civil disobedience. That's the most important stage, which is also enshrined in the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, which Ahmed bin Hamad called a bad hadith. And ordered his son to strike it out of a Muslim, but still in Bukhari and Muslim, alhamdulillah, etc. So the naivety is coming from the. You see how your view of the halal and haram, view of good and evil, can make your analysis of the reality twisted.
But Sheikh, one thing I just don't get. Look, to give husnul zan to these people, doing an amazing job. Like they make mistakes. Like for example, you don't judge, but Sheikh, the most I'll probably do when I was younger, maybe steal some sweets. That's not the same as carpet bombing Yemen. You know, there's no equivalent. The political naivety is that of a
I understand, but the problem is that's you started from that point. You started from the definition of Buwah. He must process Kufr clearly. He must come say, I don't believe in Allah. Your Allah is this and this, or something like that. That's the only Kufr Buwah for him.
But even take Erdogan. Take Erdogan, for example. Say Erdogan, we give him benefit of the doubt. He's gone from an overtly secular place to introducing certain things. I can see a person giving some kind of pass. Compare that to some like MBS. I mean, compare the history.
Clearly, his problem is like I give him the benefit of the doubt in the sense that his starting point, the ideological or the Sharia or the Islamic point of view, is fundamentally faulty. That's the reason his analysis of the reality is faulty. That's giving it benefit.
Even a secular person would make such a ridiculous. Even for example, look at for example Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I forgot the brother's name. He wasn't overtly an Islamist. But he had.
I tell you why he fell in that. I tell you why he fell in that trap. Most likely, he's interacting with Madkhali and so on, and their usual argument is that rebellion will lead to upheaval, and these rulers are under duress, and that's what they tell them in private meetings. In private meetings, tell them we have to do that, we have to sneak in between, etc. Otherwise, they will come and take the country and open brothels and open this and that. So we have to do the minimum and work around, and we cannot say publicly anything, and we have to play the game. And the Madkhali tell their follower this thing. They are doing their best. They are really fundamentally Muslims. They have their shortcomings. Yes, they commit zina, they drink khamr. All of us do that. That's not a problem, and so on. That's, I think he has infected by this idea. I wouldn't be surprised if he come and tell us that embassy is carpet bombing Yemen essentially because he thinks that Houthi will undermine Saudi Arabia and undermine Islam. He may argue in his favor like that. He's mistaken, but he may argue in his favor like that because he would try to find anything to get him out of the trouble. Also, such a theory is pleasing for yourself because this way you feel obliged. You are doing the best. You are praying for them. You are intending the best for the Ummah and hoping that maybe the next king or the next ruler will be better. And if the next bad, then the one after next until Yawm al-Qiyamah. That's the way it has been happening since the time of Muhammad. You say the one after them may be better. The one after them may be better. Don't rebel. Try to give some nasiha. Try to do it secretly. Try to do that. That's the trap. And this trap.
You know that is. You know what? When a wife gets beaten, after she calls the ambulance for the 15th time, my husband's a good man. He ain't gonna do that again. And then he does it again. Even a donkey would know better than that.
Yeah. But that's the problem.
I mean, honestly, this video really did make me cringe. Even in terms of Israel,
our wife means that, for example, Indian wives and subcontinental wives who have been educated that the husband is like a god on earth. That's number one. Or that the Muslims don't say that explicitly like that, but it's almost close to that. And you touch his feet, and or the Muslim side may believe in the fabricated hadith that he is your paradise. He's either paradise or hellfire. So he's the distinguisher. So your hellfire is your husband. If you obey him, you enter in paradise. Then you will be, if you indoctrinate it this way, that's fabricated or something like that. You will be, even if you are beaten 15 times, he's my paradise. I have to obey. The point of view about the universe and what gets you to paradise or hellfire, is that what will motivate you to analyze the reality?
But Professor, even more severe fallacy.
The man is starting looking at the reality in the false light.
Absolutely. And I would also like to add that there is an even severe fallacy in his talk. Maybe it's been sneaked to those naive Muslims by, as you said, the Madkhalis. You know, they say that if you go out to confront the rulers, you will cause a bloodshed, and as the brother said, it will be catastrophic and disastrous. Like, look at what happened to Syria and Egypt. So in their subconscious, Professor, they are saying that they are already admitting that if you go to confront the ruler, he would kill you. So they are subconsciously admitting that the ruler
absolutely.
Of your bloodshed.
There's a circular argument, but the problem, only way to get out of that is to see if the revelation has specified anything like that, and see what is tawatur, what's the fundamental principles, not some one hadith here and there, some fabricated hadith. Put all of them together. And that's what we did partly in Hasrat al-Hukam, in the old version, and we'll improve in it. So his problem is that, not that he's not a Muslim or he's not sincere, or he's agent of the Gulf countries. If he uses this language, that's a mistake. The Hizb is having this disease. This is an agent. Bin Laden is an agent. September 11 is the American plot. All these things. These things that the Hizb shot itself and put that isolated from the rest of the Ummah because of that. But that's explain these things. Like, for example, why the Hobbesian point of view that the rebellion is bad and so on. Because the civil war after and the bloodshed which has happened before Cromwell and around Cromwell, after Cromwell, after that, he came with the theory that rebellion against the king should be obeyed. Nobody should rebel, because the king is either obedience or rebellion. There's no other thing. Unless even if he kills half of the people, and even if he changed the religion of the people. He said that clearly, explained it. That's the Hobbesian point of view. So that's because he experiences something, let us say, something traumatic. They deduce the moral judgment based on a trauma of a certain historic event. That's what they deduce from. That's the problem. Not what is being, what's good and evil, referring to a frame which is above above human feeling and above the physical reality. We have that in Quran and Sunnah mutawatira. That's what the benefit of Quran and Sunnah. The English, Hobbes, and the European do not have that. They have to show history and learn from history and make their analysis here, analysis there, and so on. The reality of history is that enduring such bad rulers will never improve things. It will deteriorate most of the time. It will deteriorate. Even they may develop. Sometimes it happens because the Muslim made, because the background of the people and the background of the nation, the background of history and the background of the location is supportive that they may develop some science. Emirates is developing science and technology quite advanced that will benefit the Ummah. Does not mean they are not Fajr. Then we have also something which clarify that. The Messenger of Allah said about a man who fought in Badr and killed so many mushrikeen, and he's a kafir. Inna Allah la yansur hadha din bil-rajul al-fajir. Allah support the religion with a fajir man. Does not mean that you accept his fujur, or you don't say he's a fajir. You recognize the reality. In this situation, maybe I should abstain from rebellion because there's sufficient technology and development. But does not mean that say there's a good regime and it should be tolerated. It should be changed. Should work in changing it. So that's the problem. Is his philosophical in the Islamic background is not well balanced. Is lopsided. When he embraced Islam, he came from like fitra, revolutionary point of view, which Islam is really a revolution. Then the Madkhali spoiled him by this pseudo argument and this fabricated hadith, which believes from Messenger of Allah, it must come from wahi. In reality, they are mostly fabricated, or some words have been twisted and taken out of context, which need really thorough analysis. And then the scholars in time past, unfortunately, let us down with their halwa al-aqd, all these fabrications and these imaginary constructions. You see the point. So I'm not trying to find an excuse for him, but that's expect that to happen to meet with many people. You have to dig deeper. That's the reason I say we have to go to the deep points. We have to go to Muhasabatul Hakam. We have to, and that's the reason, for example, the book about Sultan Ummah, the authority of the Ummah, is not yet out because it stands out. There's so many components there which need to be so thoroughly studied and analyzed until we have a crisp and clear idea. There's no doubt that the authority of the Ummah, absolute, and all other theories of Al-Hal al-Aqd and the Walat al-Faqih, the Kufr system, know that. And also the divine appointment of the Imam, although I cannot call it a Kufr because there's some shubha there, but it is definitely not Islamic. The only thing is Shura, definitely. That's the one which established with certitude. And I would argue it's the only system which is established by Islam by certitude. Another system is not acceptable. And based on that, we can develop what to do if things are violated and how to do and how to manage. That historic attempts to correct the situation were mistaken, but did not done properly because of human failing or because of, let's take this out, for example. One man who was participating in fighting Al-Hussein and killing him. Someone told him, did you participate in fighting Al-Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet? Said, we have to obey our ruler's command. If we don't obey our rulers, we'll be worse than the donkeys. That's his belief. That's his belief. That's how he was indoctrinated in the time of Muawiyah. That's what Muawiyah did and his cronies. Fill the people's mind with this rubbish, with this filth. So you have to clean people's mind and give them, but with giving the correct understanding, which unfortunately was not given by Hizb ut-Tahrir. Because Hizb ut-Tahrir claiming Khilafah was either the claim was the Khilafah was Ibrahim. No, Khilafah is if you are established on earth and you have sufficient power, you are a majority in a country, you are not allowed to be ruled by Kufr. You should rule by Allah has revealed. That's your obligation as an ummah. If you fail, you'll be accounted Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you do that, then you have established system, which if it is done as Allah said, establish prayer, the system of salah, timing, etc., as we discussed many times in tafsir, zakah, and commanding good and forbidding, and that notice what the ayah said. أقاموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة وأمروا بالمعروف. أمر بالمعروف meaning establishing parties and counting the government, continuous accounting. Otherwise, the establishment will disappear and the system will go into corruption. But this has not been understood and has not understood by Hizb ut-Tahrir. And this brother did not understand it also. Because all what he has in front of him, he came to Islam, is obviously based on conviction. Muhammad, the Messenger of Allah, no doubt of that, evidence for that overwhelming, fine. But what is the rest about the political system is the rubbish that we have through history. Al-Mawardi and so on, Al-Hal wal-Aqd, and this nonsense. And that Muawiyah, since he recognized correctly that the proper system was until the abdication of Hazm. And then after that, it's not a proper system. He's right in that. But he's trying to say it's Islamic. And the people should have submitted to get out of the dilemma. Instead of being, let me mention a nice story. I once, some people here, when I was telling Saudi Arabia, that said about Al Saud, they are Kaffartul Fajara. Kafara, Fajara. So they visited me. One of them is a muhaddith, a good man. And they said, we hear that and we object to that severely. After a long discussion and so on, I mentioned the usury banking, I mentioned various things. And they said, anyway, we believe that this system is similar to the system of Muawiyah. viewpoint. I told them, okay, so what's your conclusion? It's an Islamic system. I said, no, that's not a correct conclusion. Correct conclusion is that Muawiyah's system is a Kufr system. Simple. You have to be consistent. You have to have set rules. But establish the rules which are with certitude, not based on the desire or based on faulty hadith or some scholarly blunders. That's the problem. So I think that's our job in Tajdeed. We should go to the fundamentals and clean them. And that's the reason we have this stress again. We have to go to the usul in the book of Tawheed. We have to get Muhasabatul Hakam, accounting the rulers translated. We have to get the Haakimiyyah translated also as soon as possible. I think it's being translated, etc. We have to get that.
Haakimiyyah is done. Muhasabatul Hakam was paused because you wanted to do some additional edits.
We have to review it because I think there's all the developments over the last 20 years have brought, and also scholarly contributions and discussion and so on has added various things in that area.
Professor, I would just like to pose a question for those type of people, just to undermine their way of thinking, and inshallah it will lead them to think straight in the future and will lead them to the right path. Now the brother here, he mentions quite a few countries, mentioned Pakistan, Egypt, and Turkey, for example, as a functioning political regimes. But the brother here, he did not tell us that the trick is that, for example, when he said Egypt and that Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, they promoted Sisi, so why haven't Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, for example, in Egypt, obeyed the previous ruler based on your
he will be stuck. But he answered what he said is that
it will go endlessly in chains.
Actually, he admitted that. He said he mentioned the 4 countries, they have election, they have parliament, and so on. So there's some kind of bay'ah is there. But he said, and there's somehow functions there. So although Pakistan and Egypt are not functioning properly, so he's admitting that.
But he made the election of Al-Sisi legitimate based on the choose of Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, which is an imaginary construct.
No. The problem is he's consistent because he said in Pakistan Ahl al-Aqd is the army. Essentially, he's saying the same for Egypt. So even election of Morsi, with the majority of the Egyptian people, they are rubbish. They are zero. They are nil.
But my question to him, why haven't the Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd, which is he is legitimizing, why they haven't already obeyed the previous ruler? Why they haven't
No, Abu Muhab, he's consistent. The previous ruler was elected by the public to 52% of the people. These 52% are rubbish. They are not Ahl al-Aqd. They are nil. The
yes,
is the one.
That's what he subconsciously.
Essentially, he has to say that.
He has to. Yes.
We can pick apart quite a bit of stuff. So, for example, ultimately, what
that's the meaning of it.
Inherited the mentality whereby
if Sisi is legitimate, because say why the army did not prevent, because the army was under squeeze that they did not want widespread bloodshed, so they allowed the election, waiting for the opportunity to kick everyone in the butt, and they did. They are according to
irony is, if he's a political analysis, he will be able to have figured out that Saud.
No, he's not a political analyst.
Because what I'm saying, if this is the one thing he's doing, is not very good, because anyone would know that Egypt's a deep state and that their army themselves owns something like 40% of infrastructure, even poultry. They own 40% of poultry. And they were the ones who stood down on all the infrastructure to effectively force out Morsi, rahimahullah, and then they Saud, gave them money.
No, I'm not talking about that. The reality is clear, no doubt. But I say, according to his philosophy, the Egyptian army, before and after they are Ahl al-Aqd, 52% of Egyptian voters are rubbish. They are zero. They are irrelevant. Since the ayah of the Quran, Amrun Shura Bainhum, is violated, and he doesn't care about that. He doesn't see the contradiction because he's
never been advanced
because he relying on Mawardi and so on, this imaginary construction which they try to substitute for Shura and Bayah. That shows how this fails now. Now we have a democratic election, which is a reasonable way of expressing Bayah. Definitely is expressing Bayah. But that one has not been accepted. The so-called Al-Hal wal-Aqd violated that. So they are tyrant and they are rebellious against the Ummah. Even if they are power-wise, they are Al-Hal. Yes, they can smash your head. Yes. So essentially what he's saying is might is the right. That's what he's saying.
And that is fundamentally, so just to reiterate.
It's fundamentally Kufr. That's essentially what Ahmed Muhammad said. Whoever take power by the sword so that everyone accept him and submit to him, then it is not permissible for any Muslim except to accept him and submit him and regard him as Amir al-Mu'mineen. And he wanted to this way to establish that Muawiyah is the legitimate one. The disease is very old, Shabab. It's very old.
And it needs to be destroyed, yeah.
Need to be done from the root. So we don't discuss him the current situation and his dream world, and he hopes that the Muslim world prosper and advances. It's true, he has good hope. I believe he firmly wants the Muslim world to prosper.
Except for this, normalizing Israel. Do you think Israel thinking?
He thinks that's how he thinks that. That's he
I mean, but that is pretty. I mean, they've been looking for normalization. Do you think they've been doing all these background negotiations with everyone for decades?
He thinks that
Scooby Doo.
You hear his analysis. He thinks this Israel is an imperial project of the 19th century. It is useless now. The best thing is to normalize with them and they will disappear automatically. He's living in a dream world. He looks at reality differently. Because his analysis of good and evil and right and wrong and halal and haram is not well formed. That's the problem. Influenced by classical scholars who failed us. That's it. Not because he's a failure or he has bad intention. No. Not because he's an agent like Hizb ut-Tahrir may have called him. No. It's clearly no. He was in prison, as he said. I don't think he's lying. And he maybe has electrocuted. Maybe suffered more than we suffered. But it's not mean that you suffer that you are seeing the reality correctly. Like many people suffered in Egyptian prison and became radical opposite. They declared everyone to be a kafir. You could go to the one extreme and to other extreme. No. They have the best intention. They have human failing, like I same way I have a human failing. You can go to that extreme of gullibility or to the extreme of declaring everyone to be a kafir. Finding the reasonable objective based on your point of view of the world, because what's meaning objective? You look at the reality through your own eyeglasses. There's no way. You have to. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala see the reality as it is because he's the one who created it. He's absolute. Any finite, limited being will look through his own glasses. There's no way. But the revelation of Quran and Sunnah gives us glasses which we use. He cannot use it because it's offered to him in a mutilated way. And I think he's not qualified to dig deep like that. And if he has dug deep, he faced this problem, faced a conflict, showed a few hadith, and this fit his nature. See, his nature seemed to be more toward the gullible side, towards the kind side, which is fine, no problem. Some people like that by nature. Some people like that by nature. I think that's it. I'm not going to indulge in psychoanalysis. I think that's the reason for his point of view.
Professor, on a footnote, I think it's worth mentioning to enlighten our talk by you saying that not only kufr committed by the ruler means that we can confront them or go out against them, and even fisq or not ruling.
Yeah, it's very clear. It's very clear. The ayah of the Quran and the hadith of Thawban.
If you could just mention this hadith and explain it for the
brothers. الأئمة من قريش ما إذا حكموا عدلوا وإذا وعدوا وفوا وإذا استرحموا رحموا. These are three conditions. If they fulfill that, they are worthy of being imam. فإن لم يفعلوا, if they don't do that, let's say we go extreme. If they don't do, if they violate all three, not only one of them. Let's go to the extreme to be in the cautious side. They violate all that, and this is applied to all the rulers. They're violating all that. They never fulfill their promise. They are never just. They commit injustice definitely, and they don't show mercy. They're the opposite of mercy, brutality. Then the curse of Allah and His Messenger and the angels and the humans will be upon them. But that's not all. Then the give an instruction. In that case, put your sword on your shoulder and exterminate them, annihilate them, merciless, because they are diseased. They will destroy the society. Whatever development they make that appears to be good, it ultimately that kind of ruling would spoil and destroy the core of the society, would bring it down to disintegration.
And will ultimately lead to kufr in the long term.
Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. That is above 7 heavens. That's it. If you don't do that, no, what it did not is it. If you do that, then be serfs, be حرافين أشقياء تأكلون من كد أيديكم. You will be like serfs. At the time of the Prophet, all land worker in most places in the world, except maybe in Arabia and Medina and so on, they were serfs under feudal lords with slaves. Then be slaves and land serfs, which are maintaining the ground and eating from that what they are plowing. That's all. Will end. Will end it in serfdom. That's what will end it. That's what will be. Not necessarily in Kufr. That's enough. This situation is so miserable that's undesirable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you accept to be a serf, meaning you accept other laws that beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's some kind of a hidden shirk. I'm not saying it's a public shirk, and those who accept to be serf are a kafir, because they are usually accepted by force, only by conditioning as child, not out of ideological acceptance. Ideological acceptance is clear kufr. If you accept serfdom as an ideological, you are a kafir, no doubt. Because contradicts Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have to make kufr with Tawheed. But most people accept it just because they're born in it and is conditioned to be khalas. That's how the reality is. And even the Lord here, the landlord and the king, they have divine right and so on. You are conditioned this way. You think this way you are preparing for paradise. In reality, you are preparing for misery in dunya and possibly severe accounting in akhirah. And this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives. You have to go deeper in this philosophy of this issue. But this brother did not go deep.
Inshallah, we're always open for discussion. We have our Zoom classes.
Yeah.
Anyone and everyone can ask directly. We can arrange private Zoom sessions. You can DM me, you can PM me, you can tag me.
But I believe also the great part has the Tahrir, because that what they offer is really highly unsatisfactory. It's slightly better than Muslim Brotherhood, which offer amorphous things which does not bring us anywhere, and definitely much better than Madkhali and Jami offer, and much better what this brother offers, which is clearly from the discussion. But they open the door for all these things, and the counterpoint view will be similar to that, and the most of people will be torn between the 2 points of view, because most people would not have gone to the deep depth.
Also, I see another parallel here as well with Ikhwan. Ikhwan always used to talk about generalities around morality as if it's not clearly defined. And then you have the example of when Hosni was around, unprompted, they put an entire newspaper giving Bayah to Hosni. I mean, what kind of message is that? I mean, at the end of the day, this is clearer. This is clearer. No one, and also just to clarify, no one's saying, imagine you've got a situation where you've got corruption. Ultimately, we're saying there's an entire playing field here. You don't have to, we're not in a position to start kicking off, if we use a colloquial phrase.
I think
people.
Yeah, that we have to do the proper education. We have to clean the mess accumulated over 1400 years, roughly. At
the very least, see that you have an end game and recognize that these people are not to be exonerated. They don't have your back. They are your enemies. Exactly. They are the ones that
I think you recognize now from that what he discussed and after the abdication of Al-Hasan and so on. We have to recognize that really what we are forced, actually. We did not do voluntarily. We should have done it. I should have done it, but I was concerned about the public backlash, is to start really with the Munafiq Kafir Muawiyah. But I avoided that for a long time because I knew there would be a backlash. But it is no escape. You have to start with this one and show how what he has done to the Ummah. And this will be also accepting and giving honor to the Hadith that the situation of the Ummah will be straight on until it is broken by a man from Bani Umayyah. That's it.
Which Hadith is this?
لا يزال أمر هذا الأمة مستقيما حتى يثلمه رجل بني أمية.
Is it the Sahihain?
No, not a Sahih. Doesn't need. It's a Sahih elsewhere. You don't accept the people of Sahih to put that in their books. After all that tadlis we have mentioned now. Come on. Rush, get out of this mentality of Sahih.
Someone says you've established it in other narrations to a level of certainty.
Yeah.
That's the issue. That's the issue. Point is that this is the thing, as is the case with all the material, you have all the chains of narration there, you can check for yourself, you can scrutinize it, you can curse us, you can do whatever, but look at it. By all means, look at it. This is, at the end of the day, the premise is that the zikr is protected. This is the final message. Allah has revealed this message. He's protected it. The protection comes in the form of the Quran as being itself totally protected.
Letter by letter, and the Sunnah in this totality, in such a way as we discussed in the book of Tawheed. So that Tawatur is definitely is a type of protection, but also single hadith can be verified and certified. But some hadith are fabricated, but they will never remain hidden and unexposed. And some hadith which have been declared to be da'if and so on by trickery of some scholars will later on maybe exposed to be sahih. And those scholars who claim it to be da'if will be exposed as either government scholars or gullible idiots. And that's what we are doing. Part of that doing it in very extensive and detailed way. Also in various satellite channels in Arabic, we are addressing various issues of this type.
To end on a very bad analogy, I always use the analogy of a boat. If you imagine the boat, you're in a boat, and you think you have a leak, and you think you're not far from the shore, you're going to pedal like mad, and you may not reach there. Or you fix the boat, and you pedal, and you'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
But you won't sink along the way. That's the thing. That's what it's about, cleaning and get back to fundamentals.
Exactly.
We may well be a very long way off.
There are holes there. They appear to be small, but it is sufficient to bring you down to drown. And you think the shore is not far away. You are mistaken. The shore is still far away. You have to plug these holes. You have to repair now, or have someone work with a bucket throwing things out, and someone filling the hole. Relying on that you can't go there, or you jump and swim. If you jump and swim, the shark will eat you. That's all mistakes. That's what have been done by him, running away from the problem instead of facing it.
And ultimately,
Scholars scholar did. They recognized that hadith about Bayah, even the Prophet needed Bayah and so on, is unescapable. It's just clear Kufr to deny that the people cannot rule the people without Bayah, and that the royal inherited monarchy is acceptable. This is clear Kufr. Nobody argued in Islamic history about that. So what to do with these who are semi-hereditary, not publicly declared? They were semi. What to do with that? Then they have to play the trick. This actually approval of the army, approval of the business people, approval of this, and they are representing the people somehow metaphysically, like the phoenix.
And they really never represented the interests of Ummah. I mean, all they represent...
Independent, even if it represents Sunnah, they are not representing Ummah unless they are elected. Period, full stop. Even if they represent the prayer, even if they are the best people in the universe, it doesn't fulfill the condition.
But Professor, even if they were elected, they were still continue to be representative. They are only wakil.
Yeah, not because they are business people, because they are elected. Then they will be al-aqd because of being election, and then you use the word wal-aqd.
Whatever you want.
The ummah is the owner of hal and aqd, but executing it on a daily basis cannot be done by all people. So it is delegated by delegation. That's because it's impossible otherwise. Although in modern time now, maybe with the blockchain and so on, maybe the Ummah can participate much more than that. Even single issues can be voted upon almost daily if we can get to voting in a secure and proper way through blockchain. But this is for the future. Anyway, as time progresses, the representation can become more popular and more popular. But fundamentally, it has to be connected, the chain to the basic with everyone eligible to vote. And nobody can exclude them from the vote except by Sharia evidence. Period, full stop. That's it. So they constructed this imaginary phoenix called Al-Hal wal-Aqd to get out of the dilemma.
Okay, I think that's everything. Inshallah, let's see what the response is.
That's what happened with the scholars.
Open.
Even if you give them the most benefit of the doubt, they were squeezed in a corner. If they're good Muslims. And some of them may have been munafiq, we don't know. But anyway, they were squeezed in a corner, or they accepted to be squeezed in a corner, whatever it is. But the Al-Hal al-Aqd is an imaginary construction, does not exist. It does not substitute for Bayah. It does not substitute for Bayah. In Egypt, Askar is Al-Hal al-Aqd. They have the power, they can smash your head. If you accept that, then might is right. And then Amrhum Shura Bainahum has been abrogated. And the Quran is either not from Allah or Allah is supposed to be disobeyed. There's no other alternative. It doesn't do it this way. Because Islam is not consistent, it's not from Allah. It doesn't work this way. There's no escape. That's what squeezed them to construct this imaginary BS called Ahl al-Hal wal-Aqd.
Okay.
That's it. But this is really a deep issue. That has other nations, like the English, Hobbes, and so on, the political philosophers have struggled with the problem. But you cannot blame them that they have a school of software because they don't have a guiding Quran to refer to. Actually, they can be blamed partly because they have the Old Testament in hand and so on, and they claim at least Middle Asia to believe in it, and it's clearly condemning hereditary monarchy. Just read Samuel, book of Samuel, book 1 of Samuel. The clear condemnation of monarchy. God permitted it for Israel after giving the warning that you will be oppressed and you will supplicate against your king, and I will not help. It will be your own destruction. Bye. I think clearer than that, it doesn't go. And he's the sovereign. He can't permit. You want your own destruction? I permit you. Go. Destroy yourself. To the hell with you. And this dialogue between Samuel and Allah in the book is stunning. Just go and read it. So the Western people don't know, but the Western people do not refer to these books. They rely on the church to read in their behalf. But the intellectuals after the Enlightenment should have gone back and studied that more carefully. I'm sure they didn't do. So they are not having full excuse. But in our scholars, they have no excuse. This is one protected, is uncontaminated. There is no way to say, oh, this story is actually fabricated. It's written by the people against who are of the Davidian party against the party of Samuel and Son. Someone could interject like that. But in the Quran, nobody can interject like that. The only way to get out is say it's not from Allah and Muhammad is not a messenger. That's the only way to get out. There's no other way. A Muslim can't get away. Anyway, let me just conclude when Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, and then we conclude on that without very much comment. No comment, please, just hadith. When Hudayfa was asking about the tribulation coming after his time, because he was warning the tribulation and fitan and the mischief will happen and so on. And he asked about several things. After every question, in the long version of the hadith, which you don't find in Bukhari Muslim, you find in Ibn Hibban, for example, with excellent isnad. Messenger Allah did not answer him what will happen. Say, حذيفة تعلم كتاب الله واعمل بما فيه. حذيفة, study the book of Allah, gain علم, تعلم, not study, not read, تعلم كتاب الله, gain knowledge from the book of Allah and اعمل فيه and act upon it. And then he asked him, okay, I will do, but tell me what will the next fitna. And he repeats 3 times. Then he mentioned one fitna. Then there's after that another fitna. Say, حذيفة تعلم كتاب الله واعمل ما فيه. Repeat again and again. So I tell everyone, do that. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Hudayfa. تعلم كتاب الله واعمل بما فيه. It will be sufficient. You wouldn't need anything further. Especially in this issue, you wouldn't even need that. You don't need the hadith of Thawban, Hani, and Nu'man ibn Bashir and Ibn Malik. It's enough the ayah. لا تطعنوا آثار الكفورة. With enough ayah, فيتنازلوا بشيء فردوه إلى الله ورسوله. It's enough for me, for everyone. تعلموا كتاب الله واعملوا بما فيه. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.